and welcome to another episode of Hour of Healing, where each week we talk about life changing and thought provoking topics that are engineered to bring in you healing no matter what stage of life you are in. Friends, I am your weekly host, Joe Deborah, and today we have with us a dear friend of the show, Dr. Bright AJ. For those of you who have followed us in season one and season two, you know that Dr. Bright AJ has his doctorate in physical therapy. He currently resides in the state of Texas, a very knowledgeable, God fearing man, but also a friend, a senior brother, or an older brother, I should say, and a man of God who is devoted and committed to God. Friends, it will be great for us to have a conversation with him today. Our topic for discussion today is motivations of life. Motivations of life. But before I get into it, friends, let's welcome Dr. Bright J so we can get going today. Dr. Bright,
Thank you
welcome
very
back
much,
to the show.
Dr. Deborah.
Thank you so much. And so we are talking about motivations of life today. And even before we got started today, I think we had dived into some of the things that motivate or that causes us to see the disparity in environments, societies, countries, whatever have you. So, Dr. Bright, I sat down a few months ago as I was thinking about topics for this season, and I was asking myself, why is it that two people will be given the same resources, the same opportunities, but yet you will see that one of them is doing extraordinary things with the same resource, the same opportunities, same education, but then you see that others are not doing so well, even given the same opportunities. And I started asking myself, why is that? Is it that they're not motivated enough? Is it that they don't know what to do? And so that is why you are here today to help us shed some light on this dilemma of life. And so when we talk about motivations of life, can you set the table for us? What really are we
Well,
talking about?
thank you, Dr. Joe. I mean, it's a very beautiful picture you paint because sometimes we all ask ourselves those questions, right? You have sometimes some people wishing they had the opportunities others had because they think or believe they could make more of it. And so you ask yourself, some people make plenty with little, and some people sometimes can make nothing with a lot. Yeah, there's a lot in
Yeah.
that, but I think life in itself is complex, in the sense that none of us had a hand in deciding whether or not we should be here. You know, wherever we were born or found ourselves, most of us sometimes we think, oh man, if I could pick, I would choose to be born either here or there, and not necessarily where we find ourselves. But I believe, yeah, especially as people of faith, there's a purpose and a reason uh, for wherever we are located or wherever we're placed. But yeah, life to be motivated, I think, has a lot of factors. But basically, it comes down to the two things. We always talk about nature and nurture, right? And so a lot of it is also what's in it, what's in you, and what also the society or the external factors bring into play. But I think at the end of the day, the measure of both is still trying to strive at one or two things to pursue happiness, fulfillment. Because all of us, I think that's what we shoot for in the sense that whatever we do at the end of the day will bring some sort of joy and be happy. You hear a lot of people give people advice that no matter what you do, just as long as you're happy, right? But I think what they mean by that is being happy and also being fulfilled, having fulfillment in whatever it is that you're doing. And so I think once you identify those things, then hopefully that will kind of spur you back. You look back to see how can you motivate yourself to reach that, to get that. What is what are the things that is
Wow.
going to set you on a path where at the end of the day you're happy and you're fulfilled. So only as an individual can you define that because that's different for everybody. And sometimes what I think can happen is what may make me happy and fulfilled very different from what may make the other person happy and fulfilled. And some of it, we have no
True.
control over, even though sometimes we want to and we want to change it for people. That's why you can see people with very little bank account, but they're very happy, they're very fulfilled because they feel like they're tapped into their purpose and doing everything they were called to. They're not doing the traditional norms where get married, have kids, have a good job. And you can see people will tell you stories where they achieved all these so-called things that society had placed on them, but they were miserable. So they end up trying to change it. From the outside, we're looking at people thinking, "Are you crazy? You work at Wall Street, make six figures, and then." You know. So I think a lot of it comes down to those two things. All the factors within and without that are combined to help you set yourself on a path to be happy, especially fulfilled. I think that's the key word there, that fulfillment, because that means you're working and thriving on your purpose. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you so much for that powerful answer, Dr. Brian. And I like the fact that you talk about happiness and fulfillment as the two main things that really is kind of governing this whole idea or concepts of motivation. But before we talk about some of the ways that we get or the things that motivate us, let me ask, can there be, in that sense, types of motivations then? Because from your answer, it appears that it's not only extrinsic things like the work you do or what you have or don't have. It seems like there could be some intrinsic motivations too. So, are there types of
Absolutely. I
motivations?
think there are definitely some intrinsic factors that sometimes we underplay. You know, for some reason, there are
Mm,
some people who are driven. And sometimes that nature of them, they did not gain from any external source. It's an innate thing. And so no matter what they do, they push themselves. Some people learn that, but some people have that. And one of the perfect examples I will use, for instance, is somebody like in the soccer world, Cristiano Ronaldo. He's a perfect example of somebody you can tell did not have the natural ability like you have Lionel Messi.
wow.
And a lot of times when you listen to a lot of his teammates, even when he invited them home to come have fun, half them will not go because they know when you go, you're not just having fun. Everything was a plan because he was constantly working on something. He just had that innate drive. You go to the basketball world, you have somebody like Kobe. I mean, he lived and breathed basketball where he had that innate drive, where no matter what, sometimes people even get upset that practice with his own team is not supposed to be a walkthrough. He's still going at it like 1,000%. So I think yes, there is a big part of that where as an individual, knowing what you are here for, knowing what your purpose is, knowing what you want to fulfill in life, that drives you, or even an external factor. Because those are things only
Wow.
you as the individual know and prioritize. And so once you have that goal, once you have that aim, there's certain things you don't need externally others to motivate you because you already know what you are aiming for. And so there's a big part of that, yes, that I believe sets the tone for a lot of these that we talk about.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing with us, and I like that powerful examples of two legends. Obviously, the late great Kobe Bryant of the basketball world, and as you talked about it, I really do remember when he had come to the league. He would say by
Going to
himself
be
that
right,
he was better
right,
than Michael Jordan. But if you looked at him from a talent perspective,
right,
he didn't have it. He even I would say he didn't even have the talent of
right,
someone like a LeBron James. But you look at his work ethic and what he was able to build, and so certainly I really appreciate you bringing in that example. And I think there is a word they use for it in the sports world, Mamba
right, right,
mentality. I believe is
right,
the right word. So let me ask, what are some of the things that motivates life, or what are some of the things that should
right.
motivate us in life? If you can shed some light on
So I
some of
think a
those
lot
for
of
us.
times in society we look at mostly the external factors, right? One of the obvious ones are like money. You know, we all want money.
Mm, mm,
We know money is the medium of exchange. That's very powerful in that day and age, right? And so a lot of times, most of what we do, when you ask people what career do you want to become, the first thought for most people why they pick whatever they pick is money. We're talking about power. Everybody likes
yeah.
power. Want to be put in a position where they can have a lot of influence over people. So that's a big part of
Mm,
that. These days we talk about influencers even as a term, and it's all about half the time, what you look like, body, physical. These goals
mm,
people, things people aspire to, fame. Everybody wants to be famous these days. I mean, that's the whole point of that term. Everybody wants to be famous. So things or places that you didn't even think before, there'll be cameras. Well, people are capturing all that now. And I From scripture, we talk about good name better than riches. So some of us aspire to have that name that leaves that legacy beyond when you're gone. So whenever that name is mentioned, there are certain characteristics that it evokes in people. So those are all things that I think motivate or people look up to, or people, one way, shape, or form, depending on what they pick, are looking at these from certain angles. Religion is a big one. And time, the
Mm.
Pope, the Bishop, the religion has a lot of people, and so I think there are a lot of external factors that mainly the society places on people. A lot of it is what shapes what people choose or decide to go after in life. It's what the society sometimes, unfortunately, is placing importance or emphasis on. And so, in that sense, the sad part is if it's transient, what if by the time you achieve that's past? That's why,
Wow. That's
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 why
true.
life and seeking the kingdom first and get your priorities right is very, very important. Getting some of the core principles is essential because some of these things, time in the season, there was once upon a time nobody knew who an influencer. They had no meaning, but it's a huge word and a
True.
huge term, and everybody goes after that. So I think putting that light of society expectations in the proper frame is also very, very important. But these are the things, obviously, that I think motivates and inspires people to, do what they do or try to get in positions to be able to do what they do.
Wow, wow. Thank you so much. And obviously, from our line of work, one or two of the things that I will add on to that, I think will be health and wellness. That is also a very big motivation in life for many people that they do a lot of things to maintain their physical and their mental health. Which we're not saying is good or bad here. We're just saying that these are the things that certainly motivate or drives people to do the things that they do. And I want to piggyback on two main things that you talked about. We'll talk a bit about the money part and then we will talk about the religion part. And I am doing this because from time to time we do get feedback from our audiences, and sometimes they want a bit more information on certain dynamics that affects their day-to-day life. And I think in our day and age, money and religion happens to be two of the most powerful things. And that has its roots in the Bible. I mean, when Jesus was talking about the two things that we can become servitude to, he actually juxtaposed these things together. He puts God and money in the same frame as the two things that in life we can become servants to. And so everything else, I would say, even the fame as you talked about, will also have its roots in one of these things. And so I want us to talk a bit about the money. So this is a situation where both locally where we live and also abroad in other countries, especially from our native country, where you see that people get in power, but the only thing that we see them do when they are in power is to amass money. And so, how do we explain that? Is there a reason for
Well, I
this?
think money is very powerful, but a lot of times I always go back to Proverbs 4, I believe 4 to 6. It's everything that you do, get understanding. I think a lot of times people don't realize
Mm,
why they're placing certain rules and for what purpose. Time, as such a time as this.
mm,
The Bible says the love of money is the root of all evil. It never said money was the evil, but you put money as an idol over it. And money is transient in the sense that don't become a servant of money and realize who the source of the money is. And a lot of times, I think we don't appreciate or we're not humble enough to realize that no matter all we do or all we become, we're still human and our limits can go only to a certain degree. Yeah. And so a way of putting certain is for a
mm,
purpose, is for the lack of a better word, the greater good. And that through that medium can accomplish a lot. But as humans, we are guilty and
true.
selfish. It's probably one of the main reasons why. You know, seek to
Mm,
acquire,
mm,
but it's all about being selfish and being greedy, you know. And I always, even though it seems very simplistic to say this, but people forget, even if you have 10 houses, you still sleep in one bedroom in the house. Yeah. So some
Very
used to
true.
really marvel at why people. I mean, look at this day and age. Unfortunately, in our time, it seems to be how many plane crashes are going on, and half of those sometimes are even all these private jets. And I say that to bring the point that sometimes even the money that buys all these things are the very thing that lead us to our grave. And so when we seek
True.
and as we all strive for this money, we should not lose sight of the fact that the money is a medium to go from A to B to accomplish certain tasks. But it shouldn't be about us and wielding it over other people to suppress them, or to improve people. It's about, you talk about us, our religion and our background. It says God is love and Christ is love. And the money is supposed to be a medium through which we express some of that love. So for those who may not have, the money can
Absolutely.
help us to be able to do a lot of good. But a lot of times, because of the selfish
Yes.
nature
Yes.
of man, it's all about acquiring properties and this and that. And at the end of the day, you ask yourself, you hear it and you see it when people pass on, when they die. I was watching a video the other day of the CEO used to be of Grace Life Herbal. I mean, and they showed this magnificent
Okay.
house she had and everything. And the question was, so who's enjoying it now? Gone just about a year ago, and
Mm-hmm.
all the cars, and then somebody who probably had no input in any of that is now living and enjoying all of this. So again, sometimes I think that perspective is very important. That no condition is permanent. The fact that you are into a lot of money today doesn't guarantee tomorrow will be the same. And so being able to humble, being
Yes.
able to be thankful to God, for life, for good health is very, very important because in a twinkle of an eye, that very thing that's supposed to bring you that joy, that fancy car you're driving, anything can happen. Somebody, you can be driving normal, doing all you're supposed to be doing, and somebody from somewhere. We read stories about people with stray bullets. We read so many things. And so I think that should put in perspective and let us still thank God for being a blessing to us, but we are blessed to also be a blessing. We should look at that selfless nature, see of ourselves as a medium through whom, if God blesses us with money in that sense, to be able to effect change in a good way, be able to bless others, so we can expand the kingdom. But yeah, no, unfortunately, our selfish and greedy nature sometimes precedent. So it's all about grab, 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 and that's it. Our mind stops short there.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bright. And this is actually very interesting because earlier today, like I mentioned to you off camera, I had a conversation that kind of spanned across these areas of life. And in a conversation, I was kind of alluding to some of what you said, which is the understanding part that you mentioned. You also mentioned the greedy nature of mankind, that we just want to amass. But I just want to bring this up so that at least you will share your thoughts on it, because one of the other things that I had shared with this friend was that I think some of the things that causes harm for us, especially we were talking about a lot of political leaders in Ghana and all these places. I said pride is also one of the things that really causes us to just want to amass and not really do what we want to do or need to do with the wealth that we acquire. He was a bit confused about it, but the way I explained it was pride is what causes us want to be exalted above everyone. And so we always want people to basically be beneath us. And if they're going to be beneath us, then we cannot help them to get to the same level that we are. And so, in my humble opinion, if we don't, like you rightly mentioned, if we don't get to this place of humility, realizing that God is the source of our money, God is the reason for our money, I think, Dr. Bright, that pride is what sometimes prevents the haves from leveling the playing field for the have-nots to also rise. Because if you rise and you are on the same level with me, then who is going to salute me? Who is going to come polish my shoe and my car? I will have to walk to the shoe shine or the car shop to get my car washed and polished. And I don't want to do that. Pride will not let you do that. So, what do you think about my theory on that? And then we will
Well, it's
continue with the next
interesting if you
question.
look at scripture. I believe one of the famous scriptures a lot of people quote to praise, if my people called by my name will humble themselves. There's a reason why for me, that was even the very first clause was put in there or anything else. right? Because humans, humility is a thing that we struggle with. And again, innately, because we're attracted to this power, we're attracted to the idea that I'm better than somebody. What I think I find very interesting is a lot of times I think we don't understand the word service. I mentioned it briefly early on. When we talk about Christianity, same thing. You take the principle of the husband and wife. The husband is the head. The wife respect your husband. Husbands love your wives. People look at it in that traditional sense, like you said, service. I'm the head, so just do what I tell you to do. But we don't realize that the head actually means there's a lot more responsibility that you're supposed to put on your shoulder and carry and serve, serve the children. In a normal world, most people are supposed to go into public service to serve the people. That's what it is. So again, it goes back to the lack of understanding. Because in the ideal world, you go in there and your job is to go serve the people. You're a steward, go serve the people. But in that sense, that very same person who was walking around with no title, all of a sudden voted by the people to go in and serve them, now has a title and is, oh, you can't even talk to me. You can't, right. You have to go through a medium to be able to talk to me. So a lot of it, I always say, the mindset and the lack of understanding what the purpose. So many people even get positions where they don't know what is required of them. All they know is the title. So even if you ask them what the office, what is it really there for, what is it supposed to do, they might not be able to give you the right answer. But because at that point in time, we're jobs to foot soldiers and kind of just spreading out, they just pick something and now they amass this power, this title, and they think they're better than people. In our part of the world, we're always trying to find things that makes us feel or seem better than the other, whether we speak English better, whether we're from a royal family, whatever the reason may be, we find things to one up the next person. Certainly, one of the easiest ways we do that is when we become an official, a government official in one way, shape, or form. It's not about service. I always just oppose that to where we live here, where I say you may not agree with everything they do, but at the core, they have the right intention. For them, they want to do something where they know, you know what, I am going to do this for the benefit of my people for years to come. Now, we may not agree with the approach or what they're doing, but at least they have the right motivation. With our places, even the opposite, the motivation is even not there. So, you have square pegs put in round holes. In that sense, it becomes humility is not part of their vocabulary. They have the sycophants around them to prod them up and make them it just for the little bit they might get. Poverty leads to some of these things. you know so there's a lot of facets that contribute, unfortunately, to set up such an unfortunate tone and unfortunate situation. But I think service and servitude and servantship is one of the words that really we need to gain a deeper understanding into, all facets of life, because I think that will open a lot of doors and help us with this. Yeah.
Wow. Thank you so much. I love that word stewardship. A steward is never an owner. And I will leave
Right.
it there before we get beat by some of our pastor friends. So I want to turn our attention to the religion aspect, and we will talk about the religion aspect from the lens of relationships, because I truly believe that at the core of religion is really the drive or the desire to be in a relationship, whether with the one true God, Yahweh, or with a deity of some sort. And so we will kind of merge in there, because you talked about marriage a bit, and this is our appealing. We hit every point possible. To me, I strongly and truly believe that no civilization, and history will back me up on this, that no people or civilization has ever exceeded the height of their religious powerhouses. So if we contextualize it, I would say let's say the 100 most influential religious leaders in this country, and you will find that what they see about God is what influences this nation, because these are the powerhouses behind our political figures, behind our socio-economic ladders. They are the people training the leaders that we see, whether we love them or hate them, or appreciate them or don't appreciate them, our religious leaders are the ones who are in their ears, behind them spiritually, and all that. So, for me, whenever we talk about motivations and we're talking about religion per se, I think that our religious leaders has done us a lot of the service in educating the public to know or gain the understanding that you are talking to us about. Because not everybody will go to school, but every single person, Dr. Bright, has been part of one religious organization or fraternity one way or the other. So, first of all, do you see this also as a trend? And if you do, how do we go about helping or correcting some of these
Right. I think
errors?
definitely would certainly agree that that is one part of the problem. But I think part of the main reason why that is because a lot of times instead of training and dependency on God or on the supreme deity, subconsciously becomes dependency on these powerful figures. That is a challenge, So a lot of people, unfortunately, sometimes every here and now, if that deity comes back and says something, or that religious leader, something happens to them, it can throw us off course. Because our relationship we had been building the whole time was building with that individual versus building with God or building the foundation of Christ. And Ephesians say Christ is the head, and in Him all the bodies are joined. Unfortunately, a lot of times, for a lot of them, the in Him becomes in whoever the pastor is, the bishop is, whoever has the title is. That's the person everything is being built together. So if they fail or if they are not there, we have a huge problem. And so to talk about that relationship, the easiest way I explain sometimes to people is you have people nowadays who cannot function if they cannot use their phone for an hour a day. I mean, they will literally have, serious issues. Yet that same person can go a week, a month without any relationship with their source. That same person can function without, First Peter 2 talk about craving God. After you've tasted, experienced, and seen that He's good, you have to grow. A lot of us, growth is not. I always challenge people: if you've known me for 5 years, for 10 years, and that I am the same today as I was then, and some of the quote unquote not good habits that I showed then are still present now, we have a question mark. Because that means certainly the
We have a
pruning
problem.
hasn't been happening. So what do I go to church for? What do I study the word of God for? Because that's what that word of God is. So I think a lot of it's about, as an individual, being intentional about wanting to get closer to the source. That is why I like in our form of worship, because Christ says, I am the way, the truth, and life. In an era, you had to go through someone. Now you don't have to go through anyone anymore. So there shouldn't be any excuse. Well, when I went, he was asleep. When I went, I couldn't find the person. That excuse is no longer there. We have that access. And so, if I want to know God, maybe the way these other revered men of God know God, to me, the answer is simple: it's just spending time with Him, just deepening and building on that relationship. And I think a lot of us sometimes, whether it's laziness, whether it's lack of belief, whatever the situation may be, I think even sometimes we read this Bible and we don't even sit down to pause and reflect, like, did this truly happen and do we believe that? So our mind's eye can be open to the power that's evident in this God that we claim to serve. And so a lot of what you talk about, I think, is because of that. We have these demigods, who have taken the place of the true God, who don't even have a fraction of his power. Maybe he used them for something, and all of a sudden we see that little fraction, we think, oh wow, and then we've limited God that way. And so I think what I would encourage most people, we talk about motivations here, that should be the first and foremost. That's why scripture says, seek the kingdom first. Your first motivation to be able to achieve only on all of these other things we're talking about is you have to get right, because we are spiritual beings. Whether we like it or not, we're physical, body, soul, and spirit. So we are spiritual beings. So you have to get your spiritual side, aligned. That has to be straightened out, and then flow through the physical. And so, no, unfortunately, I think because we're easy and want to depend on other people and maybe quote unquote not do the work ourselves, that has created this vacuum that we know the Lord, we
Yes.
follow, we don't
Yes.
even understand, we don't even have that faith that people in the past have exhibited, where they've shown, like, wow, how can you have that kind of faith? Where they say, a man like us can tell the rain to stop and it will stop. You know, I got it. So I think a lot of it, we really have to hone in as an individual. As a baby, you do things as a baby, but as we grow, all of us, whether we like it or not, our age, even though we like to tell ourselves the same, it keeps going. That means we are aging. The same process has to happen in spiritual walk. We have to have that growth and get that deeper meaning, deeper understanding. And I think it will quiet a lot of these challenges that we face sometimes.
Thank you so much for that powerful answer. And it's amazing whenever we have conversations and we're talking about things like this, the simplicity of everything that we are talking about. But, dear audience, make no mistake about it. Even though it might sound very simple as we are talking about, I brought up the word relationships when I talked about this religion aspect because when you want relationship with someone, do you remember when you started dating your partner, your boyfriend, your girlfriend? There is effort, there is commitment, there is intentionality, there is determination. And unfortunately, most of us, I think, like Dr. Bryce said, that most of us have become dependent on people, quote unquote, men of God, to build the relationship that we should be building ourselves, forgetting that those men and women of God are also people. And Dr. Bright, I tell you that a lot of the things that we do today, thinking or believing that is the way of God, is actually an error because it was a specific instruction for somebody in the past. Well, maybe I should go back and say that for our fathers, if God gives you a specific instruction, please make sure you are not teaching it to your children
Right.
as a doctrine,
'Cause
because I think that is one of the errors.
And I think we have the public examples now that, for instance, Prophet Benny Hinn has said, some of the things he did then, now he would not go back and do, especially all this money. And it's so interesting because
Correct.
then I was talking to a man of God, and this man of God said, now he's taking all the money he wants, so now he can say that it's our turn, he better be quiet so we can do it. So you realize, was it about doctrine or was it not about doctrine? One of the biggest pastors in our area
Exactly.
here, Gateway Church, is a huge church. I think top 10 in the whole United States. I mean, the pastor has had some serious issues come up lately. And again, it bears the question. This is a man who was one of the spiritual advisors to the president during his first term. This who's quote unquote has built an empire. So if you're an individual where you're, instead of working on your relationship with God, maybe through him, but your relationship was built on him, I mean, it destabilized the church. I know people, friends who were all belonging to the church, who, when this news came out now, they're not even sure their faith. Because not only are they not going to go to that church again, then they wonder, where did they go to church? Because what could the other person be hiding, or what could be going on in? And so, no, I think in as much as we simplify it because at the end of the day, Christ is not very complex. It's a lot of us where we put so many other things in the mix that makes it so convoluted and becomes something that almost seems like it's unachievable. I was talking to some friends last night and I said, isn't it fascinating that you talk about when you're dating somebody early on, you forgive each other, because you want to be together. Yet when you get married, that forgiveness, now nobody wants to be able to do that.
It goes
Isn't
out
the
the
devil
window.
so smart, knowing that, man, if these people are able to forgive each other, the things they can do. So let me find a way to put that strife in there, so they never be able to do that. When we are on the principles to actually achieve something great, yet we allow certain things to come in and stop that from happening, so we can't get there. These are the things we all have to safeguard, and it starts with, again, even as a couple. Why am I here? The motivations, like we talk about. Am I here to serve my partner? Am I humble enough to be here? Or maybe because when I go to work, I am this powerful person, I want to bring that home. When I come home, I was reading an article yesterday where this lady is like about to go crazy and basically on Reddit. And she was saying the husband lost his job and she was about 8 months pregnant. So then he took a job an hour away because they have bills to pay. She understood it, but she was like, well, what am I going to do when the baby comes? Like, well, it will change. We'll take care of it. She had twins. They have a 6-year-old. Well, now the husband goes to work Monday, doesn't come back home, and stays in the town where the work is till Friday.
Wow.
You ask yourself, these same couples that, now clearly you could tell she's at a wit's end, where if care is not taken, there could be that separation. But the husband taking that easy way out just because he doesn't want to do the work or put the work in. A lot of times, these are the things we're talking about. What do you want out of life? What gives you that happiness, that fulfillment? Unfortunately, when in a relationship, you don't align those. How many of them actually sit down and itemize these things and then talk together in it? The Bible says the two shall be one. So if you're one, then you can be doing your own thing. I'm doing my own thing, right? It has to tie in. Even if you have your purpose, we might not have the same calling, but we have to be able to sit there and tie them in so that everything we do falls within that plan. But a lot of times, I think those conversations, when we're dating and we have those tingly feelings, we brush the surface. But when we actually have the platform to actually build on it and make it solid, then we allow these things to come. And I was telling somebody the other day, my wife and I feel like we're on a different level in our marriage now than 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago. And the reason is because now you know the person. Now you had some growth with them. So there's been some changes. And so I was joking to that person. I said, I don't think anybody can take my wife from you or anybody can take me from my wife. And they're like, oh, look, we've heard many people say that. I'm saying that in jest. But what I mean is a new person now has to come in and learn all these things I should know already. A new person has to come and learn all these things that she should know already. So you have a huge advantage. But the only way you do that is you actually work at it. But I think if we do these things, it's simple enough if we're willing to lay down self. That is the issue. If we're willing to lay down self and go through the process and kind of actually grow, I think and understand that it's for our own good, for our own purpose, then I don't see why it's not attainable. It's definitely doable.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Dr. Bright. And we have been talking about the things that influences our motivations in life. So I want us to kind of wrap up on the first part of our conversation today with this, so that we can pick up for next week from there with how we are able to find our motivations and things like that. But we've talked about the aspect of faith being one thing that influences our motivation. So faith, religion, we talked about the pride, ego. I believe you also talked about people, the community that we are in, and things of that nature. Are there any other things that factors that you want to list for us when it comes to things that influences our motivations in life? Any other factors you want to list or bring to our
Well,
audience's
I
attention?
think society is a powerful player in that. External recognition or rewards, what society put emphasis on, is very, very important because that drives a lot of people. And so you have to be mindful
Very
of
true.
that. It's very, very important. And the key again with me with that is some of that is sometimes transient. So we also have to be mindful of that. That's why the Bible says, "Don't fix your eyes on things that are temporary." You know, not permanent. I think we have to put certain things in perspective. And so, people are very, very important. The people in our lives, some coming for a season, some coming for a lifetime. But we have to pay attention to some of these things in order to make sure everything that we do again ties into a purpose, ties into this sense of fulfillment we're talking about, ties into this sense of happiness, the joy, what we're called to do. There's a saying that is, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life, right? If you find motivation and the right thing, it's when that becomes true. You know, it's one of those. It's a lifelong that we have to pay attention to, and hopefully, we will be. We are all working. We're all striving on those. Nobody, God
Absolutely.
willing, will be able to
Absolutely.
get payout.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Brian, for the powerful things that you have shared with us. Dear audience, this has been a conversation on motivations of life. We have laid the foundation about what truly constitute these motivations and what some of the factors that influences these motivations are. As you may have gathered from our conversation today, we are very passionate about this because at the end of the day, the question that we truly have to ask ourselves is, was our life worth living? And how would you know if your life was worth living if you don't know why you were even given this gift of life in the first place? So I really appreciate Dr. Brighter J today from taking us on this journey of helping us finding happiness and fulfillment, because it is in knowing what we are here to do truly that we can gain this happiness and this fulfillment. But we will pick up on this conversation same time next week, and we hope to be able to bring you some more healing points, more healing nuggets as we do each and every week. We want to encourage you to share our platform with your friends, your loved ones, because friends, every one of us do need healing. They may not need every part of what we share, but there are sentences or phrases in our conversation today that I assure you, by the wisdom of God, will help bring them healing wherever they are. So God bless you so much, and we will see you same time next week. Bye-bye.